In this video, I'm going to break down 9 leadership lessons that you can learn from Tim Cook. When he took over running Apple in 2011, many people questioned whether he could fill the shoes of the iconic Steve Jobs. Fast forward to today, though, and Apple stands as a testament to Tim Cook's unique leadership style. I'm going to take you through the core principles that have defined his approach, along with how you can apply them yourself to develop as a leader. If you're new here, my name is Byron Morrison. I'm the author of The Effective CEO 2.0, and on my channel, I put out videos on everything from mindset to leadership and becoming more effective in your role. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss future videos. Lesson number 1 is embracing calculated risks. Tim once said, "We take risks knowing that risks will sometimes result in failure, but without the possibility of failure, there is no possibility of success." In life and business, so many people want to wait until everything's perfect or they have all the answers before taking action. The problem with that, though, is the more you delay, the more you waste time and energy. Not only that, but sometimes you also need to make mistakes to figure out how to improve or to get insights on how to approach problems differently. This is why if you look at the most effective CEOs, when it comes to making decisions, they think 5 steps ahead, because by doing so, they can take calculated risks based on the outcome they want to achieve. That also then makes it easier to be comfortable with short-term losses, as they know it's part of the process or a stepping stone that's going to get them towards where they want to be. This approach is part of why Apple has stayed so ahead of their competition, as their big picture thinking has allowed them to continuously innovate and venture into new markets. Lesson number 2 is the power of listening. The way that Tim Cook runs Apple is vastly different to Steve Jobs. Steve was known to be hard on his team, he pushed ideas, and in many ways he kept people around him walking on eggshells as they were afraid to make mistakes. Tim, however, is known for his quiet demeanor and his attentive listening. This approach has allowed him to create a culture where people not only feel comfortable with sharing ideas, they also feel valued and heard. This in turn creates a far more collaborative environment which can fuel innovation. And I spoke about this in the Richard Branson Leadership Lessons video, and it's very much a similar philosophy that at times great leadership is about stepping back. It's all about allowing your team to contribute, share ideas, and then using that to make better decisions. If you want to adapt this yourself, then don't be the person who's just waiting for their turn to talk. Instead, actually listen to your team. Doing so is going to help you think of better questions and get exposed to thoughts and ideas that may actually change your mind and the choices that you make. This is why the best leaders often speak last, as they know this is how they can get the best out of their team. Speaking of team, lesson number 3 is empowering them. One way that Tim has ensured that Apple's leadership is dynamic and responsive is by allowing other leaders in the organization to take the reins in their respective domains. This again goes back to the ethos of collaboration, where instead of being driven by ego, he's placed his trust in his executives as he knows that's what's best for the business. A massive takeaway from this is the best CEOs aren't involved in everything. Instead, they put the right people in the right places, as they know that's the best way to drive growth and get results in the business. And I know that letting go can be terrifying, especially if it's your company. The way to think about it, though, is what's the point in hiring great people then not trusting them? Because if you don't allow them to do the job that you've hired them to do, either they're going to get frustrated and leave, or you're going to keep being the bottleneck in the way of what they need to do. This is why the best leaders are able to let go, because they have the right accountability and feedback loops in place that allows them to do so. Lesson number 4 is leading with humility. Tim Cook's humility is evident in his leadership style, and he also stated that not allowing yourself to become insular is very important, maybe the most important thing as a CEO. This is why he often visits Apple stores and he engages directly with employees and customers. By doing so, he's able to keep his finger on the pulse, which gives him valuable feedback and ideas on what people like, as well as what could be improved. The big takeaway from this is no matter how big your company gets, you are never bigger than your team and customers. And by keeping your ego in check, that's how you can stay grounded and ensure you're focusing on the right areas of your business. Lesson number 5 is admitting mistakes and learning. One thing that Steve is widely acknowledged for is his willingness to change his mind. This again plays into Apple's ability to adapt, pivot, and adjust. As rather than being stubborn or married to ideas, Tim openly recognizes his mistakes. And there's a huge amount of courage involved in this, especially since as leaders, it's normal to want to keep up a facade or not have people question your competence. Even more so in a company the size of Apple, where every move is under scrutiny. The thing is, though, when you're building a business, mistakes happen and you're never going to get everything perfect. Rather than staying on or forcing a path, though, just because you started, sometimes the best thing you can do is acknowledge new information has changed your opinion. Also, like I said before, sometimes you need to make mistakes to figure out what you should actually be doing. And the sooner you can own that rather than hide from it, the sooner you can move on and start making progress. Lesson 6 is staying true to oneself. It would have been easy for Tim Cook to take over Apple and try to behave the same way that Steve Jobs did, especially with the initial skepticism that people had about his leadership style. Tim, though, remained authentic as he was determined to build and run Apple based on his principles. There's a lesson that many leaders can take away from this, especially those who are younger or new to the role, and that is be true to yourself. As it's so easy to see other big CEOs like Elon Musk or Bill Gates who shout and tear people down. And I've seen so many young CEOs who think that if they want to build a successful company, then they need to treat people the same way. Tim, though, is proof that you can do it while still treating people well. So don't feel like you need to act or behave in a particular way, especially if it's out of alignment with who you are and the leader or culture that you want to build. With that being said, though, don't use it as an excuse to avoid the difficult parts of your role, as you still need to hold people accountable and ensure that they follow through. You can do that, though, while being firm but fair. So figure out what kind of leader and person you want to be, and don't feel like you need to act like anyone else. Lesson number 7 is hire the right people. When building teams, Tim Cook's approach to hiring is to look for employees that have 4 shared skills: the ability to collaborate, being creative, curious, and the right expertise. The reason being is he found that this formula contributed to a supportive work culture, and by finding people who are able to collaborate, that's how they're able to continue innovating and disrupting. This has been key to their success, as he wanted to create a fundamental feeling that if someone shares an idea, it's going to get bigger and better through the input from others. That's also why they look for people who think differently, as he wants teams who are able to look at problems and not get caught up in the old way of doing things. He's also found that by having diversity of thoughts and creating a culture where there are no stupid questions, this is how people are able to pull apart ideas, see new solutions, and find ways to approach issues in unique and innovative ways. The big lesson from this is, remember, great companies aren't built by one person, and instead it's a team of people coming together working towards a common goal. Because of that, when you're building your teams and culture, don't just focus on what skills someone has, and instead look at them on the whole, how they think, the way they process problems, and who they are, because that'll allow you to see what else they bring to the table. I can't stress this enough, as I've seen so many CEOs and leaders making bad hires simply because they're focusing on skill alone, and that's why they're taking on people who aren't the right fit. This is why my advice is to get really clear on what sort of people do you want in your business, and then think about what questions do you need to ask up front that will allow you to see whether or not someone's aligned with your values and requirements. It can also help to look back on previous bad hires and really think about what would you have asked or done differently that would have allowed you to figure out then that someone wasn't going to work out. Doing so can teach you a lot about how to approach this differently in the future, which in turn could save you a ton of headaches and mistakes that could be avoided. Lesson number 8 is expressing gratitude. One thing that Tim makes a point of doing regularly and publicly is recognizing his team. Like a recent memo he released saying that Apple Vision Pro is a reality thanks to you, thanks to your commitment, your passion, and your contributions. This is so important, as if your employees don't feel appreciated, that's often when they lose motivation and loyalty to the business. Not only that, showing them you're grateful is simply the right thing to do. I saw this happen with a CEO client recently who came to our session telling me about all the amazing things his team had done and how proud he was of them in the company. And I asked him, "Did you tell them that?" And he said no. For him, it just wasn't something he'd thought to do. He just assumed that everyone would know what he was thinking. So later that day, he made a point to get everyone together so he could thank them for all of their hard work. Because if you want to create a culture of respect and empowerment, then I really recommend finding ways to acknowledge people when they do a good job. Even if it's as simple as saying to them, "Thank you" or "Great work." Just make it sincere, as your words will go a long way to making someone feel recognized and appreciated. And finally, lesson number 9 is be driven by something better. I want to read an exact quote from a Tim Cook presentation that I love. He said, "We can all perform at 90%, but you want to get people to 100. And to get to 100, you have to be inspired by something. You have to be working for a greater cause. There has to be some reason for doing it that's beyond just being excellent at something, that's about leaving the world better than we found it. That's our gravitational pull. That's our North Star." The reason I love this is it reinforces the philosophy of aligning people by having a greater purpose. Because as a leader, it's your job to get people to buy into the company's vision and ensure that they're on the same page. Get that right, and you'll create an environment where people are inspired, where even during the biggest challenges or the most difficult times, they stay motivated, as they know that they're working towards something that is bigger than themselves. One of the easiest ways to do that is to remind people in your talks or however you communicate your message the reason why you're doing something. What is the mission? Who are you trying to help? What is the change that you want to see in the world? Keeping that top of mind is going to help keep people on the same page working towards a common goal. So, there you have it, 9 leadership lessons from Tim Cook that'll change the way that you lead. Just as a quick recap on some of the key ones. The first was, if you want to be successful in life and business, then you have to be willing to take calculated risks. The second is, active listening is how you can foster a culture of collaboration, all while helping to innovate and grow. The third is, empower your teams by putting your trust in them to do the job that you hired them to do. The fourth is, actively find ways to show gratitude to your team, as positive words can go a long way. And finally, keep people focused on a North Star and vision to keep them motivated and inspired. Tim Cook's leadership approach is a blend of humility, innovation, and authenticity, and he's a great example of a leader who's carved his own path, all while continuing to grow one of the largest companies in the world. I'm curious to hear from you though. What are your biggest takeaways from this video, and which of these lessons are you going to apply yourself to help you become the leader your business? I'm curious to hear from you though. What are your biggest takeaways from this video, and which of these lessons are you going to apply yourself to help you develop as a leader? Share your thoughts down in the comments below. Also, on my channel, I have a ton of videos on everything from leadership lessons to mindset and ways to become more effective in your role. I'll link a couple at the end, but check out my channel so that you don't miss the rest. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss future videos. And if you want to dive into all of this further, then in the comments below, you can find a link to get my book, The Effective CEO 2.0, where I'm going to show you how to become the leader your business needs so that you can maximize your time, lead with confidence, and grow a business without losing your sanity. I've been Byron Morrison. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.